The big news in terms of rugby this past weekend was the announcement by the Sharks that they have secured the services of Springboks Sevens coach Neil Powell as their Director of Rugby. Well, that's coming up later this year, though, after the Sevens World Cup out in Cape Town. Well, he's a coach who's consistently kept the national team in the top 3, top 2 in the world for the better part of the last decade. He joins me now from Stellenbosch. Neil, good morning. Thank you so much for your time. Was the move always in the pipeline for you?
Morning, Benjamin. Yeah, I think the move to the Sharks was always in the pipeline. I think that's a discussion we had since almost a year ago that will be something. And I think I got to a point in my Sevens career where I was either having to go to another Sevens country or then to try some 15s unions and see if you can make it in the 15s. And I think I had a discussion with the Sharks a long time ago in terms of trying my hand at 15s. And I think the last, in terms of the Director of Rugby, came in the last 2 or 3 months where we had discussions where they said, but they feel like maybe the Director of Rugby will be the best position for me.
And initially, you were supposed to be roped in as a defense coach. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think that was the initial plan. And I think being the Director of Rugby, I think it's still going to be crucial for me to be on the field and to still do coaching. And I think it was one of my concerns when they said they want to appoint me as the Director of Rugby. Is I still would like to be on the field. I still would like to do the coaching because I think it's something that I really enjoy and that I have a passion for. So I'll probably still do the defense of the Sharks, even though I'm the Director of Rugby, because that contact sessions or the personal contacts with each and every player, I think is going to be really crucial.
Is it a difficult switch, Neil, from Sevens rugby to 15s?
Well, I'm probably going to still find it out because I haven't spent too much time in the 15s and set up. I was obviously with the Sharks in the last week, but again, it's something that I'll find out when I spend a little bit more time with them in the next weeks or when I join them. So I think one of the big differences is just the amount of people with the Sevens players. There's only about 25 contracted players in the system and only about 8 management, where with the 15s, I can imagine there's close to 15, 16 management and probably about 50 players. So it's going to be interesting how that dynamic will work because I really enjoy having a contact with every single player on a daily basis, especially in the 7 setup because there's not too many players. But I think with 50 players in the system, like the 15s always have, I think it will be a little bit more different.
And what are the responsibilities? I mean, if you're not an ardent rugby fan, you wouldn't know the difference between a coach, Director of Rugby, and the likes. How do you differentiate between the two?
Yeah, I think it's again something that they almost allow me to determine how that will work for me in terms of Director of Rugby. But I think one of the big roles that they want me to fulfill inside the system is to try to put all the systems in place to make the whole system run on the edge because it's a high performance environment that we want to create there. And then also the culture. I think the culture is one of the biggest things that they would like me to drive with the Sharks, and not similar to the Blitzboks, but to almost create something that's almost the same as the Blitzbok cultures, where everybody is working in the same direction, everybody's there for Springboks Sevens, and everybody's putting the work ethic in to make the system successful. And I think that was probably what they had in mind when they appointed me as the Director of Rugby, to almost look at that culture and go maybe not reinvent the wheel again, but to tweak 1 or 2 things to try and make that culture a little bit smooth and a little more effort in terms of the high performance environment that we're looking for.
And Neil, I don't know how you're going to do this. The Sharks are probably the most Springbok-laden franchise in the country. The national team captain is in there. You've got World Cup winners like Lucanio Am, who is the captain at the Sharks. I don't know how you're not intimidated by that.
Yeah, listen, I think at the end of the day, we're all still people. I mean, whether you're a Springbok or you're just a signed player at the Sharks, I think nobody is more important than anybody else. And I think that was the success for the Springboks Sevens team is although we have guys from different backgrounds, different social and economical backgrounds, everybody was the same. Nobody was more important than anybody else. And although I will have the role as Director of Rugby, there will obviously be stuff where the final call is my call. But in terms of the daily activities and the daily duties of the team and of the system, because you have a title or because you played Springbok doesn't exclude you from the daily activities. And I think it's something that we will hammer on a lot in terms of that culture of the Sharks that we try to build, that there's no hierarchy. Everybody is doing something to try and make the system successful.
Neil, what are the important things or the skills transfer qualities that you can look at when it comes to switching from sevens to 15s, not only for you as a coach, but there's a lot of players who are making the switch from sevens rugby to 15s. We've seen that in the last couple of seasons here in the country.
Yeah, listen, I think some of the guys have shown the qualities of the 15s game. I think just the intensity at what they're playing. I think a guy like Werner Kok is very intense. Even Siyabelo Senatla, a guy like Angelo Davids that joined the Stormers now, Ruan Nel, just the way they bounce back up when they make tackles, get onto the ball. So I think that's the small things that we can take from sevens and implement on the 15s game. I think for me as a sevens coach and now going into Director of Rugby role with the 15s, I think there's a lot for me to learn as well. I think, and that's why it was important for me to already start spending time with the Sharks so that I can almost understand the flow of their system and the momentum that they try to create, and also understand the game of 15s a little bit better. I mean, I've watched 15s over the last few years, but you haven't really studied the game of 15s in detail. So and I think that will be almost my focus when I look at 15s games now, is to almost study the game a little bit more in depth and see what I can learn and what trends I can pick up from the 15s game, and how we can almost bring the sevens and the 15s together and see how we can make a better 15s team.
Sure. Neil, lastly, what does this mean for the national team, the sevens rugby team, whom you've been with for the last 9 years? Is there a succession plan, and is this it for you? The World Cup in Cape Town in September will be your last tournament with them. Have you been grooming anyone?
Yeah, Benjamin, it was obviously a tough decision to leave a system that you've been part of for the last 16 years. I mean, it was 9 years as a coach and another 7 as a player before that. So it wasn't an easy decision. And I think being part of that system for such a long time, it's really important for me to leave the system in a strong place. So there is a succession plan in place. We will have somebody that's still SA Rugby's decision, but we think that the successor will be somebody that is already in the system.
Yeah.
And when they announce it for the duration of my contract that's left, I will definitely spend a lot of time with that particular person or people that will then take over the system when I've left. And I think, again, in terms of coaching manuals and everything that I've built up over the last 9 years with the Springboks Sevens team, that will also be available to whoever's going to be taking over from me in 8 months' time. So,
all right.
I think it's really key for us to make sure that Springboks Sevens still stays like that over the years.
Okay, Neil, unfortunately we have run out of time, but thank you so much for your time. Good luck with the Sharks, and we will be seeing you in 15s rugby very, very soon. That's Blitzboks coach Neil Powell. He's still got Singapore, Vancouver before handing over the reins for sevens rugby.